I said no to the Communist Party, and I had consequences for that. As I mentioned in my previous video, and for those of you who haven't watched that video, I encourage you to watch it and to listen to it if you cannot watch it, because I explain a bit about how it works in Cuba, how the indoctrination of communism and socialism and the whole ideology of the Castros is taught to you from a very early age in life. And since you start, I cannot say kindergarten, it's actually daycare, because there's these daycares from the government where if you qualify through your job, you can have your kids in those daycares, and it's kind of like a pre-K setting because they also teach them a little bit, and it is very interesting because from that very moment and then through elementary school, indoctrination is at full, to the extent that the way kids learn how to write and how to read is through indoctrination. Like, for example, if you're teaching kids the letter F, the word you're gonna use is not gonna be fruit, or in this case in Spanish, fruta. The word they're gonna use is Fidel. And they teach them a poem that they have to learn that talks about Fidel Castro. If they're gonna teach them the letter C, the word they're gonna use is Che Guevara. And they learned a poem, a little poem with one or two sentences that talk about Che Guevara. And this is starting in daycare. And then it moves along and it intensifies and it gets much deeper as you advance through elementary, middle school, high school, and then when you go to the university or to college. So I was not the exception, and I got my indoctrination also. That's the way I learned. I learned how to write, how to read. That was the way I even learned how to write compositions about history and the love for our country and the revolution, you know, until you get to a certain age where you can analyze and you check reality against ideology and you see that many things are wrong. So while you're in school in Cuba, you have to repeat and memorize certain slogans, even though you don't understand what they mean. Like, for example, when you are in elementary school, they start teaching you this slogan that says in Spanish, "Pioneros por el comunismo, seremos como el Che." That means students for communism, we will be like Che Guevara. And you're a 5-year-old kid, you're a 6-year-old kid, they're teaching you Che Guevara was a hero, was a wonderful man who fought the bad guys to bring justice and who helped Cubans, even though he was not Cuban, because he was from Argentina, for those of you who don't know. And it is interesting because that's how you learn, and that's how your parents learned. At least the last generation that's remaining in Cuba, which is my parents' generation, comes from that indoctrination because they were kids when in 1959 the Castros took power. So they learned the same. And you're always taught that everything you have, everything you own, whether it's a piece of a toy, if it's not a full toy, whether it's the food you eat, the clothes and shoes you're wearing, the house where you live in, It doesn't matter what conditions it is, even if it's falling on you and your family. You owe that to the revolution. You owe that to the communism in Cuba, to the Communist Party, and to the whole movement of the Castros. So you have to be eternally thankful to them that you were not born. I remember my dad, he was so brainwashed that he would always tell me and my brother, you have to be so thankful that you were not born in the United States of America. And I would say, why? And he said, well, you know why? Because here in Cuba, we are all equal. And yeah, that's right. But he meant by that it doesn't matter if you're white or black, you have access to education, while in the United States, only white people could go to school. Because that's the lie that they have perpetuated for decades now, not only years, for decades, that in the United States, if you are not white, you cannot go to school. If you are not white, or if you don't have money, you don't have access to education. You don't have access to health care if you are black, or if you don't have money. And that's not exactly like that. So you have to be thankful to the revolution, because it was a revolution that made possible for you to eat, to get clothes on, to have a roof above your head, and to get an education and some health care. So by the time you are in high school, they try to enroll every single student, everyone, no exception. It doesn't matter what your ideology might be, because your ideology has to be the ideology of the revolution. It doesn't matter what religion you say you have or you profess. They don't care. They will push and push to enroll every single student in what they call, or an organization they have, which is called Partido, no, Unión de Jóvenes Comunistas, Union of Communist Youth. And I was one of those students who did not get enrolled. So when I got to college, my first year of college was completely fine. But then my second year of college, the problem came, because they assigned a teacher who happened to be my English teacher in high school. But then she moved along and she was able to teach at college level. So she knew me very well. She knew the type of girl I was, and that I was a brilliant student. I was very responsible, respectful to others, that I was a Christian. And so they assigned her to me. So basically every single day this teacher would wait for me until the whole day of classes was done, and I had to go to an office with her, and she would have a talk with me about being a member of the Youth Communist Party. And I clearly said, no, I don't want to be a part of the Communist Party, the Youth Communist Party. And she said, why? I said, because I don't want to. And let me be honest to you, at that time I wasn't as clear about how much evil the tyrants and the regime were, but I simply didn't want to be a part of everything that I was able to see at that moment. So she kept pushing me and pushing me and pushing me. And at the end, when she saw that I wouldn't give up, she said, okay, let's do something. Let's write a paper, a form that says that you don't want to be a member with your ID and everything and your picture on it of the Youth Communist Organization. Because, you know, it's your right according to the principle or to the voluntarily, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like it's, you know, it's your right to say no. But even though it's your right, they don't care about it. So I passed. I said no. And she told me, there's going to be consequences. They can even kick you out of college. So why? Why would they do that? I'm one of the best students in my class. So why would they kick me out of college? Why? I'm a good student. I'm respectful. I'm here on time. I have one of the best grades in my classroom, in my class. So why would they do that? Well, because you don't want to show your respect and your appreciation and love for the revolution. So when you say no to this, it basically means you're against the revolution. So I said, well, let that be so, but I'm not going to be a member. And then every single Sunday they had what they call Sunday of Defense. And what that means is you had to go to college on Sundays to learn how to use a gun, use a weapon, or like a rifle. In Cuba they have AKM, the Russian rifles. So you had to go on Sundays to supposedly learn how to use it in case the United States would invade Cuba, because they have been telling the people of Cuba the same lie for 62 years now. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. Well, why not? Because I don't want to, and because I'm a Christian, and because every Sunday I'm attending my church and praising my God. So you have to respect that. According to the Constitution of Cuba, I have the freedoms to practice my religion. So they said, okay, you have another check mark. The next thing they did is they have in Cuba something that goes from middle school up to college, which is called, let me see how do I translate this. It's that schools in the countryside, or schools doing farm work, something like that. So, and I'm gonna make another video explaining with details what this is about. So what they actually do is when you start 7th grade, for a whole month you have to go to the countryside to these camps, let's call it, because it's basically what they are. And you have to stay there, live there for a whole month without your parents at the age of 12 years old, starting at the age of 12 years old. So I had to do it, my 3 years of middle school, then my 3 years of high school. And you work in the farms, whatever harvest it is, whatever season it is, whether it's picking potatoes, cassava, tomatoes, onions at that time. And because that's your contribution to the revolution, and that's your way to be thankful, because the revolution doesn't charge you anything for education and for healthcare. So when I got to college, I said no. I already spent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years giving to the revolution. This time I'm not going. So my teacher told me, Yara, you better think about this, because it's gonna get you in real trouble. You cannot escape this. I said, oh yes, I can. So in other words, I didn't go. All my classmates went, and those who were smart enough and didn't want to go, they found like a doctor's note saying they were sick, they could not attend. Maybe I could have done that. When that semester ended, we had like a recess, like a vacation, and after the vacation I went back to college, to my class, and they went to my classroom and got me out to the dean's office, and he told me that I was suspended for a semester. And I said, why? Why am I being suspended for a whole semester? What did I do? And he said, well, They didn't mention me not wanting to be a part of the youth communist organization, but they did mention not attending that farm camps that they had for us, and not attending every Sunday to the day of the defense of the revolution. And I said that's not a motive for you to suspend me. I didn't do anything to any of my classmates, to another student. I didn't steal anything. My grades are the best. I'm one of the best in my class. So why would you do this? They said that's the way it is, and those are orders from my superiors. Whose superiors, you never know who they are, by the way. So I went home. I told my mom and dad what was going on. They basically couldn't do anything. So I skipped that semester. When I went back the next year to start the following semester, they told me that I was not part of the college anymore, that I was not a student anymore. My mom and dad, they tried everything and to convince me and to take me with them to any levels, even if they had to write to Fidel Castro at that time. I'm talking about year maybe 2000. And I said, no, I don't want to go back there. And God always makes things work for the best. And honestly, even though I loved my career, I was starting to become an English teacher. Even though I loved my career and everything, I was happy to not go back. I was very angry. I was very sad, but I didn't want to put up with anything else. That was my consequences for saying no to them. I couldn't continue my studies, and I had to try another way and to pursue different studies, like a different career in the technical area and in the medical field. And that's what I did until I was able to get out of Cuba. And that's going to be for another video. I'll let you know how I got out of Cuba. Now a little bit of a situation update about what's going on in Cuba right now. People in Cuba are dying like flies right now. And this breaks my heart, because even my mom, my brother, and his wife, who's pregnant right now, got COVID, and they're sick right now, and there's no medications in Cuba. There's not even aspirin in Cuba. There's no aspirin, there's no Tylenol, there's no ibuprofen, there's no antibiotics of any kinds. There's no oxygen in Cuba. Oxygen, which is something you get from nature, and you do the process and put them into bottles so you can save lives or help lives. And there's no oxygen because the regime in Cuba is so broke that they don't have the means, not even to process oxygen into bottles and administer that to patients who are dying. Cubans are getting sick by the thousands, literally by the thousands. There's no ambulances, there's no medication, as I said. There's not even coffins for the dead. So they're putting them in black plastic bags. I don't know where they got them, because there's no way to buy that in Cuba. Plastic bags. It's like they were ready for what's going on. And they throw them in many common holes they have been, digging in the ground. And this is what's happening right now in Cuba. Because you get to hospital with your relative or you yourself are sick, and all they tell you is, we don't have any medications to treat you, so you better go back home until you get better, or literally die at home. It would be better for you to die at home close to your family than dying here with no treatment at all. So this is what's going on in Cuba. No oxygen, no basic medications. The United States, I read the news, they offered to help Cubans by sending aid, all kinds of aid, to 6 different airports in Cuba. But the regime said no. They even said on national TV they refused any kind of help from the enemies, the USA, because they're not gonna take any expired medications, which is ridiculous. It's disrespectful because they are the ones who are giving people right now food they had in warehouses that's already expired, because it's food that they had in the warehouses that's for their militaries, and that's also for the hotels for tourism, while the people are dying basically. I saw a video the other day, no, not the other day, it was yesterday, about a lady yelling on the street, "Can somebody please give me something to eat? Please somebody give me something to eat." And honestly, it broke my heart. I started crying and saying, "Lady, come to my house. I have so much food to share with you. Come to my house." But of course I can't. I cannot even send a bottle of aspirin to my family in Cuba, because there's no way to do that. Aspirin, my brother told me, I'm already having shortness of breath. And our cousin gave me a few aspirins, so I was telling him about, some home remedies you can do to help you with the symptoms, the cough and the shortness of breath and everything. So I told him, take 5 aspirins and make them powder and put it in a hot tea with lemon. He told me there's no lemon. So what do you mean there's no lemon in Cuba? You cannot find any lemon anywhere. What about aspirin? I said, is that something that you do one time? He said, no, do it like 2-3 times during the day. It's gonna help you. He said, I don't have enough aspirin for that. So that's the situation in Cuba, because of the blockade that the government of Cuba has set on their people, where you cannot basically buy or sell. You cannot have your own business and grow it and set the price for your products. You cannot be free to think, to talk, to express yourself. And they are in a lockdown that's horrible right now. So that's the situation in Cuba. In the meanwhile, Raul Castro's grandchild, they call him El Cangrejo, the crab, that's his nickname. He just got married. And oh my goodness, these people are so disrespectful. They don't even care about posting their big parties and banquets online. What a huge wedding, what a huge party he had, like a millionaire, while the people of Cuba are literally dying. People dying on the streets because they have shortness of breath. They don't have medication, and they don't have a means of transportation to make it to a clinic or a hospital. And when they get there with the heat in Cuba, they basically pass out on the streets. Go online, look it up online. That's what's happening in Cuba. So I had my consequence, but I said no to the tyrants. And it was not easy, but it felt good. And now when I look back, I said I was so young, but I was so brave to at least do that tiny thing. Stand up and say no, enough is enough. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something from this video. Please pray for the people of Cuba, because they need our prayers and they need help. Thank you.